The house smelled like time had stopped moving. That was the first thing I noticed when I stepped through the front door. It wasn't the peeling paint on the shutters, or the way the porch light flickered like it hadn't been changed in years. It was the smell, like old books and closed-up rooms, and something underneath that I didn't want to name. Callista's car was parked at the curb, just like she said it would be. But the house was still, no door opening, no footsteps coming down the hall, no voice saying, "You made it." I set my bag down by the entryway. The autumn air clung to my jacket as I looked around. The wallpaper had yellowed. The couch sagged a little more than I remembered. The silence pressed against my chest like it wanted to keep me out. I was always the one who showed up. That was the role I played. Not the planner, not the decision maker, just the one who got the text too late and was expected to fill in the blanks. "Come home," Callista had said. No explanation, just 2 words that hung heavy for days until I couldn't ignore them anymore. I walked into the living room and found him there. My father sat in his recliner, head tilted back, eyes closed. For a moment, I thought he was asleep, or worse, but then he shifted slightly, the movement small, like he wanted to seem unaware. "Dad?" I said, gently. He flinched. "Oh, it's you," he murmured, voice gravelly. "Didn't hear you come in." I texted. Nobody answered. He pulled a blanket tighter around his legs and kept his gaze on the TV, though it was just static. I must have dozed off. Something felt off. He wasn't a man who forgot things, not the remote, not appointments, and definitely not who was walking into his house. "You okay?" "Fine," he said too quickly. "Just tired." His hands trembled slightly as he reached for a glass of water. I noticed the pill bottles next to his chair, not the ones I remembered. These were white, unmarked by the usual pharmacy stickers, no insulin, no blood pressure meds, something new. "I didn't know you were on something else," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Don't worry about that." He looked at me then, but only for a second. "Doctors change things. I'm getting older." That wasn't an answer. He smiled, a weak, practiced thing, then looked away. I used to think he was the one person in the family who saw me, who protected me. Now he couldn't even meet my eyes. When he got up to use the bathroom, I stayed in the living room. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my chest. That slow, squeezing dread. Then I saw it. The drawer near his chair, slightly open. He always kept it locked. I hesitated, just for a second. Inside were papers. A list of prescriptions, some of which I didn't recognize. One was circled. A strong antipsychotic. Another had a woman's name on it. Not ours. Not Mom's. There was an insurance document tucked in the back with that same name. None of this made sense. I snapped the drawer shut as I heard him coming down the hall. A few minutes later, my phone rang. Callista. "Hey," she said brightly, too brightly. "You made it?" "I did." "Great, I just thought you'd want some time with Dad. You know, just the 2 of you." That didn't sound like her. She never gave time freely. She scheduled it, rationed it. "If he's that sick, why aren't you here?" She paused. "He's not that sick. Don't be dramatic." "You're the one who said, 'I said come home. That's all.'" Her tone had shifted. It was the tone she used when she wanted something and didn't want to explain why. "We'll talk later, okay?" And just like that, she hung up. I stared at the screen, her words still echoing. I wasn't a child anymore. I noticed things. I remembered patterns. Being the youngest didn't mean I was clueless, just quieter than the rest. I sat in the kitchen a while, trying to piece it all together. That's when I saw it, on the shelf, right where it had always been, the gravy boat, ceramic, cracked at the handle. Dad had glued it back together years ago after a fight at dinner. Someone had thrown it. Maybe Mom, maybe one of my brothers. I don't remember anymore. But I remembered what Dad said that night. "She'll be stronger than all of you know," he'd told them, when they laughed at my tears. That stuck with me. The boat hadn't moved. Maybe he kept it there for the same reason I remembered it, as proof that loyalty still meant something, even when everything else didn't. By nightfall, he was back in his chair, pretending to sleep again. I moved quietly through the hallway, letting the old floorboards creak under me. That's when I heard it. A voice, low and urgent. Not Dad's. She can't know the truth. It'll destroy her. I froze. It was Callista. On speakerphone. Talking to someone. I couldn't tell who. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just listened as the hallway felt smaller and colder around me. I wasn't supposed to hear that, but now that I had, everything was already changing. So when Callista stepped out of her car and saw me waiting by the door, I smiled like I knew nothing, and everything. I held that smile, just long enough to make her wonder. That night, after she pretended not to be rattled by my sudden presence, I let the silence stretch between us. I helped Dad back to his room, made sure he was settled, then told them both I was turning in early. But I didn't go to sleep. Instead, I sat in the dark hallway, the same creaky hallway I used to tiptoe through when I was 10, and scared of thunderstorms. Only now, it wasn't thunder I was afraid of. It was the sound of my name in a conversation I wasn't meant to hear. Callista's voice came muffled through the closed bedroom door, flat, low, clipped. She's not ready emotionally. We'll tell her when it's finalized. A man's voice responded. Arthur, her husband. I recognized his tone more than his words. You think she suspects anything? She suspects plenty. But she doesn't have access to anything. Let her spin her wheels. Then a laugh, hers, cold, like someone stepping on glass and enjoying the sound. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. If they knew I was out here, it'd be over. We need this done before the next review date, Arthur said. If Leonard slips again, we can't guarantee he'll remember what he signed. He already did. You were there. That signature won't hold if anyone challenges it. I felt my pulse hammer against my ribs. This wasn't just about secrets. This was theft. Slow, intentional theft of everything he'd promised to us. To me, they were banking on my silence, on me being the one who never pushed back. I stayed still for another 20 minutes after they stopped talking, just to be safe. Then I went into the study. The old desk was still there, pushed against the wall, buried under unopened mail and outdated bills. I dug through each drawer, slow and careful. A stack of legal documents lay in the bottom drawer, draft wills, insurance forms, healthcare proxies. One of them had sticky notes, Callista's handwriting. Remove, next to my name. Primary, Callista, in bold red ink. The signature line, Leonard's name, dated 2 days ago. But the signature was off, slanted, barely legible. Not his usual strong cursive. I'd seen him sign hundreds of things over the years. He used to joke that his signature looked like a judge's. This looked like it belonged to a scared child. I stared at that paper for a long time. They were rewriting his life right under him, under me, and I had no seat at that table. I put everything back exactly where I found it. I lay in the guest room that night, staring at the ceiling. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was suffocating. When we were younger, Callista used to tell people I was too sensitive, that I made things bigger than they were. But I wasn't making this up. I remembered the day she shoved me out of the way so she could stand next to Dad in every family photo. The way she interrupted me, corrected me, managed me. You're always so dramatic, she'd say. What she meant was, you're always in the way. Lying there, I repeated a phrase my therapist used to tell me. Trust your discomfort. It's a messenger. I whispered it to the ceiling like a prayer. The next morning, Callista was in the kitchen like nothing happened. She wore one of Dad's old aprons and flipped pancakes with a grin that didn't reach her eyes. Well, good morning, sleepyhead, she chirped. I thought I'd whip up breakfast like old times. She called him Daddy. She only did that when she was performing for an audience. Dad sat at the table, blinking slowly, like the sun was too much. He barely touched his food. Do you remember where we put the medical proxy papers? I asked, casually. He blinked. Huh? Callista jumped in. Let's not get into paperwork over eggs, okay? One thing at a time. She filled his plate again like he was 5. He mumbled something about being tired and went quiet. I watched her spoon syrup onto his pancakes while humming under her breath. She was playing house, except no one else was playing along. That afternoon, she left to run errands. As soon as her car pulled out of the driveway, someone knocked on the door. It was Mrs. Diane, our neighbor since before I could ride a bike. She looked smaller than I remembered, her white hair tied back, holding a casserole dish with trembling hands. "I just wanted to drop this off," she said. Then her voice dropped. "Can I talk to you a second?" I stepped out onto the porch. "Your dad. He's not the same. He doesn't come outside anymore. And Callista, she's been different." "What do you mean?" "2 weeks ago, I saw her yelling at him, right out there by the garage. She said, 'You'll sign it or else.'" My stomach clenched. "I wasn't going to say anything," she added. "But I always liked you. You were the only one who listened to him." Her words landed heavy. They didn't expect me back. That much was clear now. I spent the next hour in the backyard. The grass was overgrown, the fence chipped. I sat on the old swing set until the rusted chains squeaked under my weight. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't about documents or who got what. It was about being seen, about dignity. They thought I came to visit. They didn't know I came to remember who I am. And when I heard Callista's car turn into the driveway, I stood up, straightened my shirt. By the time she opened the front door, I was already there, smiling like I hadn't heard a thing. Chapter 3 has been completed and is ready. Let me know when you're ready for Chapter 4. Chapter 4. Behind her perfect smile. Morning came softly. The light through the curtains was pale and hesitant. I slipped out of bed, the wooden floor cool beneath my feet, and moved through the hallway half awake. The house felt hollow. Shadows lingered in corners, stretching across doors, as if waiting. In the study, I saw the portrait. The formal family portrait. Leonard in dark suit, Callista beside him, me supposed to be on the left, smiling. Only I was gone. The frame was newer, edges clean, but my face, the daughter who stood there all through childhood photos, was missing. No sign that I ever existed in that moment of us. It was invisible, and to others maybe harmless. To me, it was betrayal. I touched the glass. I found my reflection instead, my own eyes staring back. The youngest, the one nobody seemed to think mattered. Memories struck. That portrait always hung above the mantel, the warm laughter, Dad's voice calling me kiddo when I tripped or spilled milk. And now, nothing. The absence screamed. Later, in the attic, I saw something almost sacred. An old wooden box, dust-covered, tucked under forgotten blankets. I pried it open gently. Inside, childhood drawings, mother's letters praising my art, school ribbons, red, green, blue, tiny trophies from long ago. I held a toy, a wooden horse cracked at the leg, painted by my hand. Love hidden there. Then I found an envelope, yellowed edges. My name printed. To Callum Prescott. Dated 10 years back, but then crossed out. Someone had drawn a line through it, as if they meant, "You are not the daughter." The line severed truth from paper. I didn't know if I should cry or rage. I folded the letters, held the envelope tight. The world shifted under me. This wasn't just memory, this was erasure. Callista appeared in the doorway carrying books. She called me kiddo, her voice soft, but the sweetness felt sharp. I asked, calm at first, "Did Dad ever tell you to change that document?" She paused, her eyes flicked, hands froze. "Old clutter," she said. "You know how storage gets." A lie. Nervous. I could tell by the unsteady pitch. Her mask slipped for a moment. I held the envelope in my lap. She looked at it and looked away. Lunch was awkward. Callista served roast chicken and mashed potatoes. She said grace. Dad murmured amen. Aunt May, cornered conversation about the weather. But the air between us was brittle. I almost asked Dad, "Why erase me?" But I swallowed it. Instead, I studied her face, the perfect smile, the polished hair, the way she spoke for him. She managed him, not asked him. Afterwards, I retreated to my old room. The wallpaper, once vibrant, now faded. The scent of old books and dust heavy. I sat on the bed, letters in hand. I thought, for years I accepted their definitions of me. Too sensitive, Too small. Too much. I believed their version of who I was. And I remembered a line someone once said, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better." I made that line mine. I wouldn't let them overwrite who I am. Later in the study, I laid the envelope on Dad's desk, letting it lie flat, letting it be seen. I opened the envelope carefully. I read Mother's letter addressed to my daughter, Callum Prescott. Promises of trust, responsibility, shared dreams. But at the end, the signature was smudged, half erased, like someone panicked and tried to blot out their own guilt. My heart pounded. I realized there was no turning back. I had the proof, and proof demands action. I woke to sunlight cutting through the curtains, harsh and unforgiving. The autumn wind rattled against windows as I made my way to the kitchen. Callista was already there, voice low on the phone. "We'll delay until everything is in order," she said. "Missing pages, technical issues. Don't worry, she won't even see them." My heart thumped so loud I thought Dad would hear. But the house remained quiet, as if waiting for me to break something. I helped Verity place silverware, set plates. Callista handled envelopes, legal-looking, glanced my way but quickly turned away. My fingers shook. I reminded myself, stay calm, observe. Dad sat at the table, staring at nothing, as though the world outside had shifted. Callista said the will meeting was postponed. "Documents missing," she said. "Won't want her to see incomplete work, would worry unnecessarily." I kept my voice steady when I asked, "Which documents?" She smiled. "Just housekeeping." The postponement stung like betrayal given in small doses. Later, the birthday basket arrived. "Friend's gift," she said. "From me to Dad." Inside, the ornament I made years ago, a small wooden carving, fragile paint. I used to give it to Mom. She kept it on her nightstand. Now, placed among flowers and gourmet chocolates, Callista handled it with praise from guests. "How thoughtful," someone said. I felt the weight in my chest. They contrasted her possession of it, her smile, with the way I stood beside her, silent. I wanted to speak, but words tasted bitter and metallic in my mouth. I excused myself, told Dad I'd get something from the study. In his study, folders spread like a confession. I found an earlier draft of the will. My name listed as primary heir. Scribbled out, Callista's name inserted. Also a page marked technical amendment, unsigned, but clearly recent. Sticky note. Handle tonight, finalize. The letters burned under my skin. She was rewriting what should be mine, what the truth said I deserved. I backed away, closed the drawer, felt like I touched raw nerve. That night at dinner, I waited for an opening. We finished dessert, candied apple pie, stiff tea. I cleared my throat. "Father, I saw the draft, the version where I'm named. It's crossed out." Callista laughed, soft, practiced, said, "That's old paperwork. Everything will be handled properly." Dad's eyes dropped. Silence hollowed the room. Guests shifted in their seats. Some exchanged glances with me. Her mask cracked just a little. It was all I needed to know. I retreated to my old bedroom afterward. Ornament from basket tucked in my coat pocket, stared at it in the dim room. I thought back. For years, I believed love meant I'd be enough without proof. I believed family meant loyalty, that I didn't need to demand recognition. But love without recognition, love without seeing, is forgetting someone. A quote I once read came back. "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." I whispered it into the dark. I decided, enough. I will no longer accept being deleted. Later, I crept to the study under moonlight, windows dark, only desk lamp glowing. The folder I'd seen earlier, empty. The draft will gone. Sticky note remains. Better safe. In Callista's handwriting, that small note whispered she knew I'd come. She knew I'd try. My breath caught. The quiet storm inside me roared. I don't remember what time I woke up. Late enough that the light pressed through the windows, dull and thick. But early enough, Dad was still asleep. I nudged him gently to wake him for a doctor's appointment. Callista followed, smile perfect, voice rehearsed. "Let me help," she said. I kept my hands in my pockets, watching. At the hospital, when the nurse called out, "Mrs. Prescott," at Dad's bedside, I froze. The correction sang loud in my ears when it came. Miss Prescott. Her referring to Callista as his daughter, over and over, like the world might believe it. My cheeks heated. I forced a nod. Dad didn't comment. He never does. Callista's eyes flickered toward me, then away. Later, I told myself maybe it was nothing. But it wasn't. Back home, I opened my email. Something new, something sharp. Forwarded messages between Callista and Verity. The subject line, "Father's competence," and "document urgency." My name was cast in their words as someone untrustworthy. Her trust is questionable. We need documents signed soon. There was a CC to someone I didn't recognize, maybe a family friend, maybe legal counsel. I screenshot each message. If they want to talk about proof, this is it, I thought. Rage wrapped around me, cold and steady. I walked into Dad's bedroom with the screenshots in my hand. He sat in his chair, morning light slipping over his shoulders. I showed him. He read them quietly, face folding. "I thought I was protecting you," he said, voice weak. He confessed Callista convinced him she was doing what was best for family, that he shouldn't worry about conflicts if he just followed her advice. My heart sank. Betrayal wasn't just sister against me. His silence weighed too heavy, but guilt in his eyes gave a spark of hope. That evening, Callista invited over family friends, neighbors and church group people, for tea. I watched as she spoke about me in front of them. "She's been stressed," she said. Family stress. Someone asked if I was handling things okay. Their eyes full of pity. I felt small, exposed. Everyone listening as if she had orchestrated it. Everyone believing her tone of care. No one asking me. No one seeing the way I held myself because I refused to crumple. I retreated to Dad's desk in the study later. I turned on the lamp, headphones around my neck, photos spread out. Me as a teenager, Dad smiling at me, letters I wrote him. I remembered days I let her version of me exist, days I swallowed anger so thin I thought I might disappear. Then I saw the quote in my journal I'd written long ago. "You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them." I whispered it. Today, I knew it true. Then I heard footsteps above, soft, certain. Callista. My breath caught. I dropped the email screenshots into a folder I hadn't locked. She entered the study door. Her expression tight, watching me, a folder in her hand, something heavy. No words spoken, just standing there, something heavy, either the documents I wanted or hers. Either way, this was the moment the smokescreen cracked. It would never be the same. Mother's Day morning broke like a promise I wasn't ready for. The kitchen smelled of coffee and baked bread, pastel ribbons hung from door frames, flowers fresh and bright in vases. Callista moved through it all, directing guests, arranging chairs, setting out cutlery. I helped by holding plates, by pouring juice, by being kind. But I felt like a ghost among bodies. Guests greeted Callista with warmth. She was co-host, co-daughter, everything they expected. Dad sipped tea across from me. I caught his glance once, wide like he remembered, but then his eyes fell. I understood then. I was right where I wasn't meant to be noticed. At brunch, the moment came. Callista asked me to raise a toast to Mother. I stood, words in my throat, but before I could even begin, she smiled broadly and said, "Oh, let's give the floor to Aunt Gail. She's been through a lot." Guests turned. Aunt Gail stood. I closed my mouth. My voice dived into silence while the room leaned into someone else's words. My heart felt small, swallowed by the polite clapping that followed. After brunch, Callista gathered everyone in the living room. She unveiled a painting, Mother's watercolor portrait I'd done when I was young. Unsigned but unique, crooked lines, soft tones. She presented it as my gift to Dad in memory of Mother, owning it. Guests looked. "What a beautiful tribute," said one. My hands tightened into fists I pressed into my lap. I watched her receive praise. I did not speak. I recognized how deep loss could sting when someone takes your memory and claims it. Evening came slow. The sun dipped behind trees. I wandered the hallway for water, heart pounding. Through the door from upstairs, I heard voices, Callista and Verity, words I shouldn't have heard. People believe what they see, control perceptions. We'll take down those pictures on the wall. Wall photos, mother, me, dad. Proof. They meant to erase every frame of me, the walls themselves whispering evidence of betrayal, while I stood unseen. Back in my room, I shut the door. I stared at the painting on my wall. It hung in the hallway, faint light on its colors. I asked myself if I was overreacting, if I was too sensitive. But memories flooded. Mother's voice, my laughter, Callista's interruptions. Never let them rewrite your story, I recalled. My resolve hardened. I would not let my margins be erased anymore. Just before sleep, something slipped under my door. An envelope. Cream. Plain. I opened it. Inside, a photograph of the painting, captioned, Callista's tribute to Mother. No signature. My name was nowhere. They were rewriting not only the narrative, but who we all believed I was. My heart caught. This was more than theft of honor. It was war. The house was already humming with voices when I arrived. Callista's invitation called it a celebration of clarity, but everyone knew it was about the will. She greeted people with rehearsed ease, cheeks glowing, her tone like syrup over ice. I walked in holding my bag close, the USB inside almost burning through the leather. There were quick glances in my direction, then back to her. I wasn't supposed to matter tonight. Dad was seated in the living room, looking smaller than ever. He didn't speak, just looked at me, a flicker of fear, or maybe guilt, buried behind old eyes. Dinner passed in a blur of clinks and murmurs. Then Callista dimmed the lights and clicked the remote for the projector. She smiled wide. We'd like to share a special video, something close to our hearts. But before her clip loaded, I plugged in my USB. The screen flickered. Then, my mother. A home video, slightly grainy. She was sitting in the sunroom, her voice steady, eyes full of warmth. To my children, she said, both of you, I want you to have equal footing. Your dreams matter, your names matter. Share the weight, share the joy. You are equals, always. A few guests gasped. Callista stiffened. Her smile died. Whispers rippled through the room like cracks in plaster. I stood silent, arms crossed, letting the truth settle. Some guests turned to look at me differently now, not as the outlier, but as the missing piece. Before anyone spoke, I reached into my bag again, pulled out the printout of the deleted message. Mother's email to me. Don't let them silence you. Be seen. I held it high. Verity stepped forward, trying to deflect. That could be altered. We don't know its source. I cut in. Here's the metadata, date, time, IP. This was real. Dad looked stricken. His eyes darted between me and the screen, between truth and his silence. Guests murmured, some in confusion, some in quiet support. The shift was happening, not loud, but deep. I moved toward the small raised area Callista had dubbed the stage. Took the mic from its stand. The room stilled. For years, I said, I have been edited out of the narrative, labeled as sensitive, difficult, disconnected. But what I was erased, and I won't stay erased. I raised the printed will drafts, the email, and pointed toward the paused screen. You cannot overwrite someone's love with paperwork. Callista started forward, but I spoke over her. Today is not about inheritance, it's about intention, dignity, and truth. Then I set the mic down. Not gently, not dramatically. Just enough that it made a soft thud on the stand. That sound rang louder than any applause. I turned, walked away. No one stopped me. Behind me, the room felt like it had been cracked open. Some people rose, some stayed seated. Dad struggled to his feet but didn't speak. Verity stood near him, whispering. One guest touched my arm gently as I passed. I'm so sorry. Another just nodded, eyes full. Callista was frozen. Her face unreadable, except in the way someone's shoulders can't lie. I left the documents on the coffee table. Didn't need to carry them anymore. The guests thinned out. I stayed behind, lingering as if the air itself needed to shift. Later, after the last car had pulled away, I found Dad in the study. He held an old portrait of our family, one where I was actually in the frame. "I was scared," he said. "Didn't know how to protect you when I felt weak." I sat across from him. Pretending didn't protect anyone. He nodded slowly. There wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but there was recognition. And maybe that was enough to start. Just before I stood to leave, Verity entered. In her hand was a sealed envelope. She hesitated, then walked to Dad. "It's time." He opened it, hands trembling. He read aloud. "Primary heir, Callum Prescott." The room went still. My name, finally spoken in the open, in full light. I stood for a moment after stepping down from that stage. The silence in the room was heavy, like everyone was holding their breath. Some guests stared at me with wide eyes. Some whispered to each other. A few turned their backs, unable to face what had been revealed. Callista's lips were parted, stunned. Verity moved beside her, trying to intercept the damage. Dad stood unsteadily, voice soft when he finally spoke. I felt vindicated, but also afraid. What if this wasn't enough? What if the truth could be ignored again? He cleared his throat, clasped the updated will in trembling hands. "Primary heir, Callum Prescott," he read, words slow but clear. It shook me, in a good way. He confessed to being misled, to letting fear guide him. He said Mother always wanted equality, said he hadn't honored that. His voice broke. Tears came, not because I wanted them, but because I needed them. Guests nodded. Some dabbed their eyes. Community felt real, like it had shifted around me, finally acknowledging what was always mine. Callista rose, face tight. "This was an ambush," she said, voice sharp. "You manipulated emotions. You never gave us warning." Verity stood behind her, clutching papers. She produced letters, side comments, tried to argue the video was edited. I didn't flinch. I presented original files, metadata from my email, witnesses who overheard conversations. I asked for legal confirmation. I gave clarity where there had been shadows. My voice didn't shake. I held ground, not in anger, but in truth. Then Dad handed me the portrait frame, the one where I'd once been missing. He placed it back where it belonged, beside Callista's. My face appeared in the image once more. I lifted the ornament I'd created, the one taken from me, and set it on the mantel where everyone could see. No one clapped loudly. It wasn't a performance, but the shift was real. A line had been drawn. I claimed what was always mine. Later, in Dad's study, the night turned soft, warm light around us. He apologized again, for fear, for silence, for letting someone else tell his story. I forgave him, not forgetting, but choosing not to carry bitterness. We spoke of Mother's dreams, the damage of lies, the wounds that won't vanish overnight, but also of rebuilding, of what integrity looks like in everyday life, of honoring truth in small things. Alone, I walked through the hallways, touching the things I thought had been erased. Mother's watercolor, the letters in her handwriting, the old ribbons, the portraits. I remembered that quote I often thought of. "You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them." A decision I held firm in my chest. Messages came the next day. Neighbors, old friends, some I hadn't heard from in years. Mrs. Diane wrote, "So proud you finally spoke your truth." Others sent quiet words of support. I smiled, feeling seen at last. I turned off the lights that night. I paused in the empty hallway where I once felt invisible. Now my name echoed there in the silence, not like a whisper, but like promise.